Chapter 1. Same shit, different day. It's 4 in the morning and the rooster is crowing. I got to get up when he does or I'd be late getting breakfast started. Mama likes for food to be on the table when she gets home from work. She works at night cleaning all the rooms at the courthouse and she always home by 6 o'clock every morning. You could set a rooster by it. Throwing the covers back, Eve shivers as the cold outside the bed chases away the warmth of sleep. After a brief stretch and a yawn, she swings her feet to the cold wooden floor, where she quickly searches for her boots with her toes. Unable to find them, she reaches to her far right with her eyes closed and snags them, smiling when she feels her wool sock stuffed inside. Once her feet are snug inside her boots, she throws on her housecoat and walks to the bathroom in the dark. People think we're living high on the hog 'cause we got a bathroom indoors. Mama been working at the courthouse so long, she make a good wage, so we got indoor plumbing and a looking glass. I can't go to school no more. Mama says that I'm 14 and I need to learn how to pull my weight. So I got to do the cooking and cleaning till I turn 16, and then she says she can get me a job working with her. That'd be good. Maybe then I can live in town on my own and make some friends. Ain't no friends out here in the country. Just chickens and the stray dogs that like hanging around Bertha. She our cow. While staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, there's a sudden hard thud on the bathroom door before it flies open. Quickly turning around, Eve can see Bear standing at the door in the dim lantern light. His eyes are half closed with sleep, but you can see the reddened rim of his lids and smell the moonshine on him. As she backs far into the corner, he briefly cuts his eyes at Eve, before standing at the toilet, exposing himself and beginning to urinate in front of her. Unconsciously rubbing the scabbed over cut in her hairline, she remains quiet as the grave, staring up at the back of his head till he finishes. Pulling the chain to flush, he cuts his eyes at her and heads out the bathroom door. You make too much goddamn noise. Don't wake me up again, Bear says in a drunk-laden, gravelly voice. Holding her breath, Eve remains motionless until she can hear the bedroom door close. Then she allows herself to breathe again. That's Bear. He Mama's husband. They ain't married official. They ain't been to see the preacher or nothing like that. But they live like husband and wife. Folks ain't too picky about that stuff in the country. Nah, he ain't my daddy. He and Mama had a baby boy a long time ago, but he died. Now he drink most of the time. He worked second shift at the mill and brew moonshine to sell. But he drink more of it than he sell. Lucky for us, Mama's job's so good. He don't like me none, 'cause I ain't his. Taking the lantern in her hand, Eve makes a short trip from the bathroom to the kitchen. The room is dark and still smells of last night's fried chicken. Pulling her house dress closer to her body, she exhales with a shiver, watching as the icy fog of her breath dissipates several inches in front of her. Turning to the right, she goes to the back door, which has a heavy wooden beam barricading it. Setting the lantern down, she uses both hands to lift it off and set it in the corner before taking the lantern back up and going out into the cold morning. Crossing the backyard, Eve looks around for Bertha in the small fenced-in pasture as she approaches the chicken coop. Once inside, she retrieves 7 eggs and places them in the basket that hangs on a nail just outside the door. Carrying the lantern and the basket, she steps back into the yard, but Bertha is nowhere to be found. Going to the small barn where she sleeps, she sets down the basket and pushes the door open. Lifting the lantern, she can see Bertha lying on her side, very still. "Oh, no, Bertha, you can't be sick, heifer, not today, not any day," Eve calls out, bewildered. She places a hand on the cow's snout and feels the elevated temperature. Looking Bertha over, Eve raises the lantern and looks down at her udders that are a bright red. Gently, she places a hand against it and it is hard to the touch, causing the cow to cry out in obvious pain. Pulling her hand away and gently rubbing her snout once again, Eve lowers her head and sits quietly for a mere moment before rising and grabbing a large piece of burlap hanging from a nail on the wall. She drapes the piece of cloth over the young cow, covering as much of her as she can, before turning and leaving her alone in the cold darkness. When the sun begins its daily trek across the sky, Eve sets a bowl of oatmeal on the table with a bowl of sugar, brown sugar, and cinnamon around it. She places a mason jar of water next to it and almost immediately Bear steps into the kitchen and stands for just a moment surveying the room and leering at her. He is shirtless this morning, wearing only a pair of boxer shorts and scratching his abdomen in that absent-minded way that men do immediately after waking. He stands at nearly 6 feet 6 inches tall, and he is a darker-skinned brown man. Unlike most other country men who are strong but fat with a big gut, he is thickly muscled, resulting from years of working in the sawmill. After a long yawn and stretch, he strolls over to the table, slightly dragging his feet. Once there, he pulls out his chair, sits down, and begins spooning the spices into his oatmeal. Slowly, he begins to mix the contents of his bowl while looking around the table. Next, his eyes fall on his mason jar of water, and his lips begin to curl as he stares at Eve. "Where's the milk?" Bear asks. "Ain't none," Eve answers. "What you mean, ain't none? You know I put milk in my oatmeal and drink a glass with every meal. Where is it?" "Bertha's sick. Ain't no milk. She got the fever," Eve explains. "Bertha? You mean that heifer out there? You ain't got but one job, keep the house and mind them animals, and you can't do that?" Bear asks with increasing venom. Facing him, Eve says, "I bathe her udders every day, but you won't let me use no vinegar to disinfect them. Them dogs always suckling from her, and they ain't clean." Standing up, he says, "So is it my fault? Is that what you say?" Backing up, she says, "You could fix the fence so they can't get to her. You have milk every morning, Bear." Grabbing his drinking jar, he hurls it at Eve's face, who is just able to get her arm up to absorb the impact, causing it to ricochet upward, skid across the kitchen cabinets, and then shatter on the floor. When she lowers her arms, Bear is standing nose to nose with her, leering down at her and breathing his foul morning breath into her face. "I'm gonna have milk today. Take your bastard ass down the road and get some from somebody," he demands of her. Trembling, she softly asks, "But what about Mama's breakfast? You know she want her eggs and ham." "You better go fast then," he says while backing up to the table. "Disinfect. Like you know something. I tell you what I know, we better not have this talk tomorrow." Pushing the chair back with his foot, he plops down as Eve scampers across the kitchen and out the back door. Once outside, she does not stop her forward momentum, even with the fear coursing through her and making her shudder from head to toe. Looking up at the quickly brightening sky, she breaks into a run, knowing that she is running out of time. After about 10 minutes, she arrives at the nearest home, which belonged to the local preacher. Heavily out of breath, she leans over, resting with her hands on her knees, looking at the small white house with foreboding, before slowly approaching the door. "I don't have no more options. He the nearest, and I gotta get back home. He the local preacher, but he ain't like preachers in town. He ain't got no education or even a church. But since he claimed to know the Bible and can shout good, folks gather on Sunday looking for salvation. I ain't looking for it. I'm looking for a real way out of here. I don't even know his name. He just preacher." Still breathing rapidly, Eve knocks hard and fast on the screen door and waits impatiently for 10 seconds. She's about to knock again when the front door steadily opens. The smell of cigarettes floods out of the home, forcing Eve to cough despite her overworked lungs. As the screen door opens, she backs up and a short, fat man steps out onto the porch, pulling his suspenders up over his shoulders. His thinning hair is greasy and slicked back on his head. His yellow eyes narrow on her slightly, before a not-so-righteous smile touches his lips. "Eve, it sure is early, honey. What you doing here, girl?" Preacher asks her. "I'm right sorry to disturb you, sir, but our cow is sick and ain't gave no milk this morning. I need some awful bad. Could you please give us a bottle?" Eve asks. "Well, that sounds like a problem. I'll charge you 30 cents, Eve." Swallowing hard, she says, "I ain't got 30 cents, sir." Sound like a bigger problem. That cow of yours gets sick often. I got 5 cows, and they all healthy as a horse. You hear that, girl? That's funny, girl," he bellows while slapping his knee with laughter. Calming, he says, "You hold on a minute, girl." Taking a deep breath, Eve glances up at the brighter sky as he goes back inside. He comes back within a minute, and he is carrying 2 bottles of fresh cold milk. "This what you need, girl?" he asks with a smirk. "Yes, sir." Nodding, he sets both bottles on the porch and then stands up straight, looking at her with his head tilted slightly back while nearing her. How old are you, Eve? I'm 14, sir, she answers. You need to start thinking about your future. You marrying age and you need a man to take care of you, Preacher tells her. Mama say in another year I'm going to work with her. She say I ain't old enough for no marriage, Eve says. I'm going to talk to your mama, see if I can convince her that I's good for you. Maybe I can convince you too, he says while circling around behind her. Closing her eyes, she bites her bottom lip when she feels his hands lightly touch her shoulders and slowly slide down her chest and over her breast. Your mama raised a good girl. Nobody can really see what good titties you got under those big clothes, but a man with experience like myself can tell, Preacher says. Slowly he begins to rub her breasts in circles, strongly squeezing them on and off. Preacher, I got to get home before Mama does, lest she gon' tan my hide, she pleads. Don't rush me now. Pulling up the front of her oversized house dress, he slides his hands up her abdomen and settles back on her breast, using his dry fingertips to stimulate her nipples in slow circles. This continues for several minutes before gripping both breasts one final time and releasing her. Then he walks back in front of her, picks up the 2 bottles of milk, and hands them to her. You think about that now, and enjoy your milk, Eve. Thank you, sir, she says while taking the bottles and running as fast as she can out of his yard. The run back home takes longer since she is carrying the bottles and still reeling from the visit at the preacher's home. When she gets to her front yard, she can see the light on in the kitchen and she can hear her mother and Bear arguing inside the house. With a deep breath, she runs up the back steps and slides to a halt only a few feet from her mother. Where the hell you been? I've been working all night and got no breakfast when I get in. I'm about to get the switch and whoop up on your ass, girl, her mother yells at her. I'm sorry, Mama. Bear told me to go find some milk for his oatmeal and he didn't care how, she answers while putting the milk on the table. Why we need milk? We got that expensive cow so we don't have to buy no milk. Bertha's sick, Mama. Thinks she got infection in her teats again, Eve tells her. I told you to take care of the damn cow. I do, Mama, but Bear says I can't waste no vinegar on her and them mangy dogs keep suckling off her. Shut the hell up talking about me and get some fresh damn oatmeal, he yells at her. As Eve tries to slip past her mother to the stove, she stops her and tilts Eve's head towards her. How you get that cut on your scalp? I was bringing Bear a jar of shine last night and I tripped on his boot in the middle of the floor and I dropped it and it broke. So he hit me and made me clean it up, she confesses, slightly withering under Bear's venomous leer. Quickly, Eve's mother turns on Bear, nearly screaming. How the hell you gonna yell at me about her not making breakfast when you steady beating on her? Stop hitting on this child like that. You ain't got the sense that God gave nobody. May Evelyn, you need to shut the hell up too or you'll get the same. Now make my damn oatmeal, Eve. Seeing her mother wither as well, Eve slides past her and starts remaking his oatmeal and frying her eggs and ham. Agonizing minutes pass until she sets the bowl of oatmeal in front of Bear and the plate of eggs and ham in front of her mother. When they begin to eat in silence, she grabs the second bottle of milk and places it in the icebox. Who gave you that milk, Eve? May Evelyn asks her. Preacher did, ma'am. Oh, Preacher did. You know, he's a good man. He thinks a lot of you. He tells me so, she says with beaming pride. Yes, ma'am. When the kitchen falls silent again, Eve waits a few moments before walking behind her mother into the bathroom, where she closes the door behind her. For several minutes she stands in the dark, taking deep breaths, trying to regain the calm that had been missing since she found Bertha before dawn. Once the sound of her heart seems steady, she turns on the light and looks at herself in the looking glass. Tilting her chin up, she examines her high cheekbones as the overhead light causes her hazel eyes to sparkle. She rubs the light, almost yellowish-brown skin over her cheeks and down her neck before pushing her straggly, curly, light brown hair behind her ears. Mama say that I ain't never gonna have to worry about pressing and straightening my hair. It's already as good as white folks since my daddy white. I never seen him and she don't talk about him, but that's how come I look so different than her. She's short and brown with a big round butt and small titties and thick nappy hair. She pretty, but a different pretty than me. I'm taller with long legs and the same big round butt, but my titties is fuller and rounder and prettier and just plain bigger. That's why she get my clothes so big, so nobody can really see. I hate that fucking preacher. He ain't no godly man. Anytime I got to beg for something, he got to feel on me, and I seen him do it to other girls too when he think ain't nobody looking. They be rumors that some of the girls be having babies and that they his, but they don't tell and he don't neither. I hate him so much. But when he touch me, I like it when he touch me. The way it feel in my titties and low down between my legs, Mama calls it my treasure. I'm 14 and almost 15 and done already started bleeding. Mama say that now I can have babies, so I bet not let nobody near my treasure. But when preacher touch me, that's what I feel like I need. Something near my treasure. I touch it myself a lot when I'm alone and it nice. But I feel like I'm missing something special. I mean, I know what grown people do. I seen it when Barry and Mama do it. I scared of him, but when he be on top of her, I be wishing it me. Sometimes I hate myself for feeling that way. Sometimes I don't. Standing in the bathroom with her house dress pulled up, Eve quietly pushes herself, bringing herself nearer and nearer to much-needed satisfaction when there's a sudden thud on the door. Come on out of there, Eve. I got to bathe and go to bed. And you got to make Bear's lunch and dinner before he go to the mill. You know how he is now. Come on out of there, her mama demands. Looking in the mirror, Eve sighs heavily before lowering her dress, washing her hands, and returning to the kitchen.